All right. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Sarah Velasquez. I'm an account manager with the Family Forest Carbon Program, and I primarily work with landowners in the Northeast. Just a couple of things to note as well today. In the bottom, you'll see a Q&A. You can put all your questions in there and we'll address them at the end of the meeting. We also will be recording this and sending it out after. So for the agenda today, I'll be going over the Family Forest Carbon Program overview, and then Chrissy Shaw, our Senior Forestry Manager, will go through eligibility and practices. And then Kyle Brown, our Community Manager, will go over what happens once you enroll in the program. And then at the end, we'll go through the Q&A. So the Family Forest Carbon Program helps landowners with 30 or more forested acres reach their forest management goals by providing extra income, guidance from a forester, and a forest management plan. The program improves forest health, wildlife habitat, timber value, and increases carbon stored on their land throughout the 20-year enrollment. The Family Forest Carbon Program was created through a partnership with the Nature Conservancy and the American Forest Foundation. AFF is a national conservation nonprofit organization that works to empower family forest landowners to make a meaningful conservation impact on their land. And the Family Forest Carbon Program started because 39% of forests in the United States are owned by families and individuals who care deeply about the health of their woods, but often don't have the funds or resources to realize the true potential of their land. AFF offers the Family Forest Carbon Program to give landowners the opportunity to benefit from the carbon market, providing them with additional income for their land and bringing economic stimulus to local communities. The sustainable forest management practices improve forest health and value and increase carbon sequestration and storage. And our program is funded by the carbon market, grants, and private donations. The American Forest Foundation's Family Forest Carbon Program acts as a bridge for forest landowners to access the benefits of the voluntary carbon market, protecting landowners from the risks and complexity of the carbon market. So we guarantee annual payments that landowners know upfront before they enroll. And those payments are anticipated for future market valuation changes, which are figured into those payments. And FFCP assumes the risk of future negative market fluctuations. So I'll go over the benefits. So some of the financial benefits for landowners are guaranteed annual payments that can be used for anything, which includes property taxes, healthier and more climate-resistant forests, which improves long-term forest and timber value, and landowners retain the full ownership, privacy, and control of their land with continued use of their property for personal or professional recreation and hunting. Some of the forest management resource benefits are expert professional foresters who help develop and update forest management plans. A forest management plan customized for your own property and your goals, as well as help with forest stewardship for you, your family, and future generations. And then we have extended education from partners like the American Tree Farm System, Audubon Society, or the USDA NRCS program. And some of those things can include wildlife habitat restoration and improvements, soil and water quality improvements, and mine reclamation. And then some of the community benefits is a membership into a community of like-minded landowners to share experiences and ideas. Healthier forests, which means improved wildlife habitat, more wildlife species, cleaner air, and cleaner water. And by paying private landowners, we're putting money back into rural American communities. So this is Susan Benedict. She's an early enrollee into our program, and she's really passionate about keeping her land healthy and maintaining the wildlife habitat. And then I'll pass this over to Chrissy Shaw, our Senior Forestry Manager.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I'll be talking to you guys today about FFCP eligibility and the forest management practices with you all. So before we dive into the forestry side of things, I thought it would be good to provide you all with a picture of who is enrolling with us. So we're very proud to be supporting 1,120 plus landowners leverage new markets with us and receive income to achieve their stewardship goals. And these 150,000 acres equates to roughly $40.43 million in payments to these folks. And with these landowners, that is enough acreage to capture and store 2.57 million tons of carbon over the next 20 years. And this is all done with landowners who have as few as 30 acres to enroll. So where are we enrolling folks? We're open across roughly 20 states right now. And within the Northeast region, we're enrolling in Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New York, and Vermont. And finally, when landowners enroll with us, what are they planning to do? So a majority of our folks who are enrolled actually have a timber harvest prescribed within their forest management plan. So many of our folks are planning to produce wood products that will complement the payments they receive from our program. And that additional income can then be leveraged to implement other stewardship goals such as trail construction or maintenance, non-commercial work for hunting habitat, or it can be used to continue your family legacy of ownership. So let's dive into where we're present. As you can see on the map, we're open in 20 states across the US, and we have plans to expand into more states in the near future. If we look at the map, it displays the states and counties where we are open for enrolling landowners, and the blue is where we're open for enrolling in the Northeast states. And you can check to see if your county is offering enrollment by heading over to the familyforestcarbon.org website. So let's talk about our two improved forest management practices in the Northeast region. First thing to really talk about when thinking about enrolling is that these enrollment services will cover all come at no cost to you for you to explore. So this concept of creating financial access to a market for smaller acreage landowner is really at the heart of FFCP's mission. And we'll go through some of the details on the slides, but our program connects you to an enrollment forester who will walk you through the benefits of the program. In order to be eligible for the program, we must enroll at least 30 acres of forest that match our regional eligibility criteria. And FFCP stands out from other carbon programs in that we provide our landowners with the flexibility to enroll part or all of that eligible region. So most other carbon programs require enrollment of entire ownerships. The enrollment forester, who again comes at no cost for you to get connected to, will qualify you for one of our two practices that we'll talk about on the next slides. And this qualification will be based on existing commitments and goals for your land. And another thing that makes us stand out is that FFCP is just a 20-year commitment, and we don't have an additional monitoring period attached. And both of our Northeast practices available to enroll in are designed to grow bigger trees that are worth more at the end of your commitment with the program. So in other words, these practices put you on a path towards sustainable forest management. And again, when you get connected to your enrollment forester to develop a project area, they will qualify you for a practice that's tailored to your management objectives. So let's talk about our first practice. Enhance your woodland. This is a practice that enrolls existing forests that match our regional eligibility criteria and changes harvesting behavior. Enhance your woodland provides landowners with annual payments, forestry expertise, and if you want, timber sale revenue from future harvests. Enhance your woodland is currently enrolling landowners with 30 acres of forest in our Northeast states. And you can check out your property on our website to see if you are eligible for the next steps. So let's explore more about the Enhance Your Woodland practice. To enroll, we have to have a forest that matches regional eligibility criteria. And in the Northeast region, we need to see at least 30 forested acres of naturally occurring maple beech birch. That's 2,000 board feet per acre with an 8-inch QMD that's 60 square feet per acre. And there's no need to figure out if you meet this criteria ahead of time, since again, part of our enrollment process is to get you connected to that enrollment forester who will evaluate your conditions. It's important to note that we have an asterisk there on our acreage because we do have a new opportunity for even smaller acreage landowners to enroll with us. And I'll talk about that later. We do have a personal use allowance within our contract that permits you to conduct forest activities that are smaller than a traditional timber sale, such as collecting firewood, or if you want to create snags for wildlife. I mentioned this before, but a key component to our program is to incorporate the sustainable use of forest products. So we do allow for timber harvesting, but within specific parameters that allow us to create additionality with you. Another key component to our program is that we have a shorter contract length than most other carbon programs. You know, it's just a 20-year commitment for you. And then during that 20-year commitment, you receive those guaranteed payments for your time spent with the program. And the Enhance Your Woodland practice offers $200 per acre, or if you break that down, $10 per acre per year. It's also important to note that these payments do not fluctuate if you decide to harvest. So this practice pairs well with the opportunity to pursue multiple streams of income. And finally, if landowners enroll, they will receive a stipend to develop a forest management plan with a forester of their choosing, or you can get connected to a forester who will write your plan at no cost. And I'll go into more details about those plan options later in the presentation. So what type of management can you do while you're enrolled in Enhance Your Woodland? So to start, if landowners choose to harvest while enrolled in Enhance Your Woodland, they do have to procure a third-party forester to develop and submit a pre-harvest report to the program. And this report outlines your conditions at the time of harvest and what is expected to be removed when you are finished with your timber sale. In the enrollment region, landowners are allowed to remove less than 15% of the total basal area, reduce the enrollment region QMD by less than 10%, and they need to follow state BMPs. And again, these are parameters that we have established to modify the typical harvesting behavior just a little bit to grow larger trees that will be more valuable in the future. With the Enhance Your Woodland harvesting allowances, and thinking about applications on the ground, landowners could apply thinnings to extend rotations or shift the species composition to a longer lived forest type. They have the opportunity to conduct a single tree or group tree selection system, which are light gaps that are less than 1 acre in size to promote that next generation of your forest. And if you look at the photo on this slide here, this is a typical light gap that you would see if you decide to apply a single tree selection system to your property. And to give you kind of like a spatial reference, it's about 80 foot in diameter when you look at it in the woods. And depending on your enrollment region conditions, Enhance Your Woodland could also allow larger light gaps than 1 acre in size. So in other words, we might be able to accommodate small patch clear cuts or TSI work that is a bit heavier. And your enrollment forester will help guide you on FFCP harvesting if this is something you're interested in pursuing. So now let's talk about personal use that I mentioned before and dive into other forest uses and how they're compatible with enrollment in FFCP. So the annual personal use allowance in the enrollment region and the amount that can be taken out is dependent on what you actually enroll, your acreage. So this can be used to collect firewood from your enrollment region or perform those smaller TSI projects that don't have a set schedule for completion, such as creating wildlife snags. And you can see the table on the right-hand side has that scale for the personal use removals, depending on your enrollment region. Enhance Your Woodland also accommodates other forest activities that do not interfere with the growth and development of mature trees. And for your knowledge, our program considers a mature tree as a woody stem that's greater than 5-inch DBH and above. So these activities could include treatment of invasive species, the protection of regeneration through fencing, the creation of footpaths or forest trails, mushroom gathering, or leases on your land, such as sugar bush or hunting. It's important to note that these activities do not require formal reporting to the program when they're conducted. So now let's move over to our other practice in the Northeast region. It's called growing older forests. Growing older forests is a practice that enrolls existing forests that match regional eligibility criteria and changes harvesting behavior. Growing older forests provides landowners with annual expertise and payments. And here's where we start to differ. So growing older forests is actually a harvest deferral practice, but you can still achieve many non-commercial and non-timbering activities on your land. And again, growing older forests is enrolling in the Northeast states, and you can check out your property on our website to see if you're eligible for the next steps. So let's talk a little bit more about growing older forests. So you'll notice that the eligibility criteria for your forest is exactly the same. We need to see 30 acres of maple beech birch, that's 2,000 board feet per acre, 8-inch QMD, and 60 square feet. And again, there's no need to figure out if you meet this criteria ahead of time, as we do have enrollment foresters who will evaluate your conditions. We also have the same personal use allowance within our landowner contract for growing older forests, and we have the same contract length and the same opportunity for enrolled landowners to develop a forest management plan every 10 years. And really where we start to differentiate from enhancer woodland is when it comes to harvesting. So growing older forests is a timber harvest deferral commitment. And as such, compatibility with other programs that require the ability to harvest may not be possible. However, this practice is great for landowners who are just starting to learn about their forest, or ones that have no obligations to bring wood to market in the next 20 years. Additionally, the payments for this practice will be $300 per acre, or if you break that down, it's $15 per acre per year. So since we are deferring timber harvesting activities within growing older forest practice, what can we do? The annual personal use allowance and the other forest uses is the short answer here. So it follows the exact same guidelines and parameters as the enhancer woodland practice does here. So it depends on the number of acres, how many you can remove in a year. And again, you can achieve the firewood collection, or if you're interested in doing TSI that doesn't have any kind of set schedule, like the creation of those wildlife snags. And then again, with the other forest uses, if you're enrolled in growing older forests, you can still treat invasive species. You can protect your regeneration from browse with fencing. You can create those footpaths or forest trails. You can still do mushroom gathering, and you can still hold those leases, such as sugar bush or hunting on your land. And again, just to reiterate, these other forest uses or personal use allowances don't require formal reporting at the time that you conduct them. So when landowners are going through the enrollment process, they do have the opportunity to combine the enhancer woodland practice and the growing older forest practice into a single contract. So long as we're meeting the minimum acreage for our enrollment, which is 30 acres. So for example, you could be a landowner who wants to enroll 15 eligible acres into enhancer woodland and then 15 eligible acres into growing older forest to meet our 30-acre minimum. That's perfectly acceptable. If you wish to explore that opportunity, your enrollment forester will consider your forest conditions, your goals, any existing commitments that you might have, and apply the two practices where the forest would benefit the most. So we've mentioned this on a couple of slides. And that is that we have our special opportunity for a minimum acreage that we can enroll in. So we do have this opportunity for extra small landowners. And this opportunity is for underserved landowners who can enroll as few as 15 eligible acres into the program. And the landowner who enrolls will maintain all the same benefits of a traditional enrollment. You'll receive annual payments for participation, the technical assistance from a professional forester. If you decide to enroll, you'll receive that stipend or the possibility to develop a forest management plan with staff. And then there's also this continued engagement piece that happens after you enroll. In order to qualify for this opportunity, you do need to respond to a confidential survey sent by AFF. But when you think about opportunities for landowners of this size, it's really pretty amazing that there's this opportunity out there for them to explore. So let's talk about the benefits of enrolling. So when landowners enroll in the program, they do receive the support to develop a forest management plan for their entire forested acreage and not just what is enrolled. So depending on the goals you have for your forest, this can be one of two pathways. You can have a free template plan that is developed by staff, or you can receive a stipend to develop a plan with a forester of your choosing. And you can see on this table here, we have on the right, it shows the pathways to stipend that's delivered to landowners. And this pathway will be decided with your forester during the enrollment call that you have with them. Thinking about, these two different pathways and who these folks are. So landowners who receive a free template are typically those that are looking to fulfill program obligations to develop a plan, or those who are new to forestry. And this type of plan will deliver you small actionable items that you can achieve in your forest and really lay the groundwork for understanding your forest better. And when you choose this option, you will be assigned to a forester who will set up a time to develop that plan with you. And landowners who receive the stipend, those are typically folks who desire to pair our program with another. So when landowners have this as a goal, they need to procure a professional forester that is certified to write plans for that additional commitment. And this typically looks like a landowner who is interested in pairing FFCP either with a state tax program or a federal program. So I mentioned this on previous slides, but how does FFCP work with other program commitments? And the short answer is that we pair very well with many other initiatives, such as cost share, use valuation, and right-of-way easements. And all integration pathways, our staff will evaluate those existing commitments that you have for final compatibility with our program and the qualification of your practice. And as long as harvesting is not restricted, other land programs are generally not in conflict with FFCP. So to come full circle on the program here, this is Tim Stout again, who has joined the program. He is very motivated to continue a legacy of conservation and sustainability on his land, and FFCP is helping him to achieve that. Now I'll hand the presentation off to Kyle Brown, who is one of AFF's community managers for the Community and Sustained Engagement team.
Thanks, Chrissy. Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Brown. Like Chrissy mentioned, I'm a community manager here with the Community and Sustained Engagement team here with AFF. And I'll just mention off the top, if you hear something around me, I'm not near a swarm of bees. I have a fan running. It's still pretty toasty here in Pittsburgh, so just trying to stay cool. And I'll be talking about what happens after you enroll in the program, as well as just giving a brief overview and recap of what has already been discussed. So talking a little bit about the payment, it's your payments themselves in the contract. Again, as Chrissy mentioned, these are 20-year contracts, which sounds like a lot, but it's not actually too much compared to other carbon programs. As was mentioned, the payment amount is determined by your eligible area times the going rate for the eligible practice you're enrolled in. So growing older forest practice enrolls at $300 per acre, and Enhancer Woodland enrolls at $200 per acre. As Chrissy also mentioned, we also offer forest management plan stipends depending on your total forested acres. I will say that we require enrollees in the Family Forest Carbon Program are required to get that third-party forest management plan to us within 2 years of their enrollment. So while this is a great opportunity for you to sign up with a forest management plan to get that drafted, those are required within 2 years of your enrollment. The same as a staff plan would be as well, but we just like to make sure that folks are aware of their contract obligations from the go. And then at the bottom, you can see that briefly touching on it, landowners receive an offer within 30 days to consider, and the total process from start to finish is 80 days, which I'll talk about here in a second. So getting into an example on the Enhance Your Woodland practice. So this is just taking a hypothetical, talking about the money, everyone's favorite part. If you have 50 acres enrolled in the Family Forest Carbon Program, enrolled in the Enhancing Your Woodlands practice, you can expect a $10,000 total payment for the lifetime of your contract, which is 20 years. $200 per acre, the math works out to be $10,000 right on the dot. With those 50 acres, You'll also see at the bottom, our cadence for payment, our timeline is a little unique because we typically pay folks a 20% lump sum in their first year of enrollment and a 10% lump sum in year 20. So you're looking at big payments in the beginning and at the end with smaller payments in the middle. And you can take a look there on the left. We're talking 3% for years 2 through 8, 4% years 9 through 14, and 5% through years 15 through 19. So yeah. And then getting into a growing older forests practice example, again, that pays $300 per acre, not $200. So that is an extra $100 per acre. So again, with the hypothetical example of 50 acres, you're looking at $15,000 for your total payment for the life of your contract of 20 years, spread out over the course of those 20 years with 20% or $3,000 paid in year 1 and 10% or $1,500 paid in year 20. So to get started, you can go to familyforestcarbon.org. This here just shows you an overview of the entire process of your enrollment in which you'd be working with folks like Sarah and the account managers. So to get started, you can find your property on our website mapping tool. You go to check your eligibility, and that will start your qualification process. You will then speak with an FFCP representative who can provide additional information about your woodland and just answer any questions that you might have from the start. Then you'll be connected with an FFCP forester either virtually or to actually visit your property to further determine your eligibility and begin planning your project. Then you will review your offer that we send out and sign your contract. And once that is finished, your account manager, oh, excuse me, I'm rereading. Finally, the next step before the last step, excuse me, is you'll receive your first payment. You will receive your stipend as well in your year 1 payment, that stipend for your third-party management plan. Again, that amount varies, but folks, we get that question a lot, like, hey, I received this payment, but I didn't receive my stipend. It is always included in that first year payment for your enrollment. And then finally, for the last step, you'll work with your forester. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm rereading that again. That's my bad. Once you're enrolled and you have your first payment, then essentially the process, as I mentioned, shifts to my team from the account managers. So my role at AFF, as I said, is community manager on the community and sustained engagement team. As mentioned at the top, these are 20-year contracts, which sounds like a lot, which it is a commitment for sure, but rest assured you aren't alone. During that 20 years of your enrollment, you'll have myself and my teammates there to help support you, answer your questions, and provide additional opportunities for you, which I think are on the next slide. Yes, so more opportunities as well as individualized support through email, which you see our email address there is communitymanagers@forestfoundation.org. We also offer automated emails. If you prefer phone call support, we are happy to give you calls. We try to respond to phone calls and voicemails within 24 to 48 business hours. I also listed the Family Forest. Now, the Family Forest is, if you haven't heard of it already, it's a first of its kind social media platform. This is a platform, I know social media, adding another social media to your phone or to your desktop sounds like a chore. It sounds scary. But I'm excited to say that this is a first of its kind platform developed by forest professionals for forest landowners and professionals and enthusiasts. This is unlike any other social media platform like Facebook or Twitter or any others in that we do not collect and sell your data. This is just a platform in which you can go in, you can ask your questions, you can get resources, get information about events. We even have some people who post trail cam photos of their wildlife or pictures of themselves out in the woods and what they're doing, what they're managing. So it's just a really great virtual community that you can be a part of to connect with like-minded landowners like you, either to ask questions or just to build that community. We also offer 2 quarterly opportunities, the quarterly community coffee calls, which is, again, a really casual opportunity that our landowners really love. We encourage all Family Forest Carbon Program enrollees to attend those community coffee calls. They are opportunities to hear program updates from myself and my team. They're also a great opportunity to hear a sort of featured presentation each time. We usually have a topic of choice. We actually had one this week, and we had our several of our foresters come in to talk about invasives, and we had a panel style discussion on invasive species management. So again, just a really great opportunity to connect with each other and connect with us via Zoom. And then also we offer quarterly newsletters. So as an enrollee in the Family Forest Carbon Program, you automatically get subscribed to a quarterly newsletter, which includes all the above information as well as additional info and stories. So next steps to learn more about FFCP, you can go to familyforestcarbon.org/how-it-works with little dashes in between. You can check your eligibility, as I mentioned, at familyforestcarbon.org/get-started. You can also connect with us by scheduling a call with our team by clicking the link in your FFCP qualification email, or call our team at 844-790-0045, or email us at info@familyforestimpact.org. Now, I know that there have been several emails mentioned. I just want to mention this one is info@familyforestimpact.org. That is different from our community manager's email, as I mentioned. And now getting into questions with the remaining, I think, 26 minutes we have, so plenty of time to answer some questions. We are super grateful to you all for joining and for asking your questions in the Q&A tool we have at the bottom. So if my colleagues, Sarah and Chrissy, don't mind coming back on camera, I'm definitely going to put you in the hot seat and ask you some questions. So this first one is from Karen. Is there a deadline for landowners in the Northeast to enroll?
I can take that one, Kyle. We don't have a deadline for landowners to enroll. Our enrollment is essentially like a rolling continuous invitation for landowners. So no deadlines on our end. That's in contrast to probably like the state tax programs that you're thinking of that have specific deadlines for applications to come in, but we don't have one. So yeah, good question.
Yeah, thank you, Chrissy, for answering that. I was about to just say one word, no, but I was hoping someone could chime in case you had any other deadlines I wasn't aware of.
Nope.
So moving on to this one, is the enrollment forester an AFF employee? I think we answered that one already. You can go either route, either by expressing your intent to get a third-party management plan, in which case you'll receive that stipend in your year one payment, or you can elect to have one of our staff foresters complete a plan.
Yeah, so Kyle's talking about like the post enrollment, what happens like after you enroll there, you can choose which plan you want to go, and then you get to pick kind of your forester essentially at that point. But with the enrollment process, the enrollment forester that I mentioned can be an AFF employee, but we do work with consulting foresters and that workforce as well. So it just depends who is available in your region for you to talk to, essentially.
Thank you, Christy, for clarifying.
Yeah,
We
no
have
problem.
another question that my team typically handles, which is what happens should you need to sell the property before the end of your 20 years? So just to reiterate, when you sign a contract with the Family Forest Carbon Program, you are signing that contract for the duration of the contract, which is 20 years. Comparable to oil and gas leases, you're essentially signing away your carbon rights to us. Now, if you do need to sell, that is possible. We've encountered that in the past. We encourage any seller of a property to find somebody, ideally, who would like to remain enrolled. If you have a buyer who would like to be enrolled in the Family Forest Carbon Program, then it's pretty simple for us. You just tell us, hey, I'm selling my property to so-and-so. We'll get in contact with them, and there's some pretty simple paperwork to move the contract over to them. If you wish to sell and you can't find somebody to take on the contract, then unfortunately you will need to terminate the contract, which comes with different penalties, but obviously something we like to avoid, and we know you'd like to avoid as well. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of questions asking that. Are softwood forests included in the program? This is a question from Bill.
Yeah, so the The matching eligibility requirement for the Northeast is that it has to be a maple beech birch forest. So that's typically like northern hardwoods mix when you think about it. The softwood forests, we can include, some that have like essentially smaller components where it's not a majority of, the softwoods included. So if we have, a forest where we at least see 50% of the species in that maple beech birch category. If you have, like 45% in softwoods, something like that could enroll in the program. However, if you're talking about, like a straight pine plantation type of a scenario, that's something that we wouldn't be able to enroll. Our methodology just accommodates for naturally occurring stands. So that would be something that we would have to exclude from a project. And really, that's the reason for that is really kind of like forest health concerns with plantations, because we're essentially creating a forest there, and we're doing it at a very unnatural density, and it creates a lot of competition in that forest. And so thinning on a very regular schedule is the best thing for forest health. And we did build this program to address forest health concerns when we were thinking about it and who was going to enroll.
Thanks, Chrissy. And I have another question for you. Someone asked, Claude asked, what does a typical forest management plan look like? Will the landowner be expected to do work in the land or incur expenses? Excuse me.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So again, once landowners enroll, if you sign the contract and join us, we'll have you go down one of those two pathways. One is a template plan where we have, very small actionable items that you could consider implementing on your lands. But none of those that we put in the plan for recommendations are actually required for you to do. So those template plans are really just meant, for folks to kind of get started and start understanding their woods and what they could do to, help improve forest health type things. But when we talk about those third-party plans that are written for not only FFCP, but for enrollment in another program, you do have to keep in mind that the other program is going to have requirements for you that we do not. So, if you're considering enrolling in a state tax program that requires you to bring wood to market, you do have to be aware of those requirements if that's something you're going to pursue. But, if you're just interested in enrolling in our program and that's where you want to leave it and pursue it, that we don't have stipulations that you have to do anything in your plans.
Thanks, Chrissy. I'm
Yeah,
just combing through these questions. Yeah, we've got a lot of them. Claude, I think it's the same Claude, I'm assuming, ask another question, which is there any restriction on planting trees on my property?
No, there is not any restrictions on planting, doing supplemental planting, if you enroll in FFCP. And in fact, when you do enroll, if you have those regions that are understocked a little bit on your property and you're concerned about the regeneration, our foresters would actually write in your plan to, and like basically do a planting or encourage it in that region. So it's not out of the question, and certainly something that you can do.
Thanks, Chrissy.
Yeah.
Okay, so another question we have, which I can attempt to answer, Alan asked, who buys credits or pays the bulk of money to the program? What kinds of emissions are they offsetting? Would the benefit to our forest outweigh the harm done by the donors who are offsetting? So yeah, so without going into detail about what carbon markets are, we have an entire team devoted to that with a wonderful colleague of ours, Nate Truitt, who we'd encourage you to check out his LinkedIn. He's constantly posting nerdy, high-level stuff about carbon markets. But essentially, we have a whole team that does vet our buyers. They look into our buyers who are wishing to buy credits from us. are they already meaningfully reducing their emissions? So if you are a company, what steps are you already taking to reducing your carbon emissions before you're actually buying carbon credits from AFF? And I think who buys the credits? We have a list of companies that do that. I don't think we're keeping that secret. I don't have the list off the top of my head. Chrissy and Sarah, feel free to chime in, but Disney is one company, Amazon, Bank of America is another, and then we have some other smaller companies. I think there's one that's like a sort of residential green cleaning company, household cleaners. Is there anything you'd like to add, Sarah and Chrissy?
REI, which I think is
REI. Yeah. And then we also got another question in here that I'm looking for. I can't find it right now, but it was basically like, given any uncertainties in funding, is there from government grants, et cetera, what essentially being questioning, are we guaranteed to receive payment if we enroll in this program? Which, yes, you are. AFF is committed to paying our enrollees for the lifetime of their contract. Yeah, so oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chrissy.
I was just gonna say, I see some questions up here about, how do I know if my forester works with you? And I just wanted to say, during the process of seeing if you qualify, we do ask who your forester is. And if you're interested in working with them still, I'm actually the person that works with the consulting foresters and gets them on board. So I would be communicating with your forester to see if this is an option they would like to provide to their clients. Some folks say yes and they jump on board, but some don't. It just depends on what their business model is and if they want to basically participate with us. It's again kind of an open invitation for them to join, just the same as enrollment is for landowners. So.
Another question I'm seeing here, which is, can the program transfer to a new owner when the land is sold or transfers ownership through family or deed? This is similar to the question I answered earlier, but yes, similar to if you sell the property to a new buyer, if someone inherits your property, if unfortunately we have had a few cases where our enrollees sadly pass away. In all of the cases, I believe their next of kins have assumed ownership of the property. So really that process of the transfer of the contract itself isn't that difficult. It's more tedious than anything. What my team has tried to address with that issue is, excuse me one second. Apologies. What my team's attempted to address is if we have a landowner, if we have an enrollee who we just haven't heard from in a while, or isn't responding, we're assuming something has gone on. How can we get in contact with their family? And I'm happy to say that we shortly after your enrollment, you'll receive an automated message collecting an emergency contact for yourself, similar to a doctor's office where you list an emergency contact. Excuse me, I have something in my throat. Chrissy or Sarah, do you mind taking over?
Yeah,
Do you want to grab that one, Sarah?
Yeah, so similar, I've had landowners bring this up before they enroll as well. So when they transfer the property, you would alert the community managers and then you would provide proof of the transfer. So that could also be in the case of like switching your property into an LLC if you decide to change that after you enroll as well. So as long as we have proof of that, transferring it is not a problem.
I see another one on here about Maine's tree growth status and a question about a required harvest in 10 years. So Kathy, that's something if you're interested in, finding out if that's compatible. We during the enrollment process with your enrollment forester, they'll take a look at your existing forest management plan for compatibility with our program harvesting guidelines. And if they see anything on there that needs to be modified or amended in order for you to enroll, we will deliver you a stipend for that amendment once you do enroll with us, so that you can get that changed with your forester. It's sometimes good to have an additional conversation during this enrollment process with the forester who wrote your plan, just to make sure that, something like our harvesting guidelines that we have that you have to follow once you enroll would be appropriate for you to apply, because there are certain harvesting systems that are outside of our parameters but could be perfectly acceptable for forest health reasons. So again, it's just kind of all about what your conditions are and how we can work with them to achieve those goals and continue with your forest health.
Thanks, Chrissy. Thanks everyone for your patience. Allergies happen to the best of us. So another question that we received, hoping you didn't answer this while I stepped away to get some water, Chrissy, but Jean asked, when will New Jersey be viable, if at all?
Yeah, I didn't take that one. So New Jersey is not currently open for enrollment. And thinking about our potential future expansions, I don't think it is on the list of ones that we are considering. And I'll say that has to come back to our methodology and how we actually prove that we're creating additionality. So something that I talked about during the forestry presentation was this harvest behavior change that we ask for with landowners. And when we have either poor timber markets or weak timber markets, there's not really a great way for us to prove with those landowners statistically and with confidence and say that we are creating additionality. And one of the pieces of the program, we were built on integrity and making sure that we are actually having the impact that we're seeking with our landowners. So I don't know if that will be opened in the future, is what I can say. So.
Yeah, sad to say to all our fellow garden staters out there. Another question we have, and from someone anonymous, is limited ATV use permitted?
Yeah, so we do, if you have like a trail system or something like that that is existing on your property, as long as your ATVs are not interfering with the growth of the mature trees, again, that really kind of comes back to a forest health concern, and you're keeping your ATVs on those designated trails. That's something that we can certainly accommodate and work with you on, and you can continue that use. So.
Yeah, and another question about payments. Do payments have to be fully spent each year? And do we have to report to the Family Forest Carbon Program how payments were used each year? No, you don't have to report. That is your money. Most of our landowners enrolled in FFCP usually pay off, property taxes. You could buy anything. You could buy 100 orders at McDonald's. It is your money that you are being paid for the carbon that you are sequestering.
The percentages question, I think that was probably to do with like the table payouts that we use, which is essentially like a condensed version of like the expanded payments that you receive each year. But I think when Kyle showed it, it was like years 2 through 7 or something, where like 2% of your contract value or something along those lines. I think what sometimes people miss is that it's year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7 that we're talking about there, that you each, you get 2% in each of those. So it's not literally like the addition of all those columns, because we did some kind of, we did like an abbreviation in that table, essentially.
Another question here. I presently have my property under State 61A protection. Is there a specific cutting plan that goes with this commitment? Could the Family Forest Carbon Program be used with that plan? Did you
Yeah,
already
so
answer this, Chrissy?
no, I didn't, but
Oh,
that Massachusetts program, Chapter 61, that can be compatible, but again, we do have to look at what your commitments are within that specific program. And if we do have practices that you need to implement for some other reason, we, again, it's not completely out of the question. We do have options, right? So as long as we have a 30-acre project, we could consider you for enrollment. But if you have to stay on a schedule of, a shelter wood over here for your oak or, whatever else that you have on the forest, we need to exclude that so that you can continue that, management for forest health. And again, those are acceptable scenarios with our program, which is not exactly the case with other carbon programs. They typically require you to enroll all of your eligible acreage or even multiple properties and parcels. So
yeah, thanks, Chrissy. And I have two more questions for you. I know you've been answering all the questions, so appreciate your help with these. Somebody asked, are other hardwoods like hickory and oak included? And then killing two birds with one stone. Another person asked, when you evaluated my tree composition, are oak trees counted as a positive contribution, similar to the maples and birches?
yeah, so oak hickory is not a forest type group that we can currently enroll in the Northeast states. And again, the reason for that is it came back to how we're able to prove additionality with those folks. We simply didn't have the statistical data to confidently say when we enroll those lands, yes, we're creating additionality. However, we do know that all forests, really outside of maple beech birch, they all sequester and store carbon, right? So it's not to say that those trees are not doing something good. It's just that our program doesn't have a way to maintain our integrity and enroll that forest type. So
Yeah, and then Robert asked, what happens if market prices rise dramatically? Is there any adjustment to the contract? I don't believe so, but this also goes for if carbon markets failed, as markets do, they fluctuate. But do either of you have anything to add to that?
Just
more.
Yeah, like you said, it doesn't, if it goes either way, it stays the same, and I think that's because we haven't seen that happen either,
Right.
since the program's been in place.
Yeah, thank you. Another question from Douglas. Just wondering aloud, as only time will tell, sadly, will beech leaf disease induced mortality impact your program long term?
I mean, obviously, the loss of a mature tree is going to be, carbon loss in the end. But, carbon does cycle through forests. And so even if we have natural mortality that occurs, very likely we're not seeing pure beech stands that we're enrolling. It's generally like a smaller percentage mixed in with maple beech birch. And if that's the case, usually you're going to have ingrowth of some of those more shade tolerant species coming in like sugar maple. So, yeah, I mean, it does, but again, it's part of the cycle. So, we do account for at least some natural mortality in our methodology.
And another twofer, we had someone ask, is there a list of foresters you work with? We have a plan less than 10 years old from Landfest. Do we work with them? And then another person, Douglas asked, how would I know if my forester is affiliated with the program? Are their property tax effects down? Oh, yeah. Are you picking up on that, Chrissy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, when you come in, if you provide us your name of your forester or even the organization that you work with, we can check and see if they work with us. And again, if they don't and you want to continue working with them, I'm able to do some outreach to those folks just to offer them participation in our program. Hopefully they get on board. I do, enjoy having more foresters chat with about the program. It's always fun to talk with them. But anyways, so yeah, I mean, there's options there if they don't participate specifically.
Apologies, I was muted. I'm looking at the Q&A and it doesn't look like we have any more open questions. Would encourage folks at this time to type your questions into that Q&A.
Yeah, I see a couple in the webinar chat. There was a question about Canada, which, yeah, so, some of our coworkers are actually up in Canada, but we haven't expanded to Canada just yet. I have a sneaking suspicion it's because a lot of Canada is actually softwoods, and we just haven't worked much in softwoods yet. But that's not to say it's not possible. It's just something we haven't explored yet, I don't think fully, but would be exciting too, for sure.
And do you care, Chrissy, to talk about emerald ash borer mitigation?
Yeah, certainly. So, yeah, emerald ash borer is, it's coming through. And what we do know about it is that it's, pretty much insured mortality at this point. So many foresters will recommend a pre-salvage, actually, of your ash before it becomes a problem. So, and the reason they do that actually is because when emerald ash borer is finally visible and it's in your tree, there's very limited time for you to actually set up a timber sale and capture any value that might have been in those ash trees. Ash decays pretty quickly. Usually after a year, it's no longer a wood product once you see visible signs. So if you have, a good percentage of ash on your property, it's really good to talk to a local forester and ask them about a pre-salvage, because again, you're going to be able to capture that value if that's what you want to do. But otherwise, if you don't, and you aren't able to capture the value, that's perfectly fine, because something that's missing across our landscape just in general is coarse woody debris. So a lot of times large coarse woody debris is an element that is missing from a lot of our forests, and it's very much needed. So either way, you could kind of slice it that way. But in terms of like replacement species, so it really will depend on the site conditions, unfortunately, but I've seen a lot of hackberry actually come in after ash, which is a really neat tree. If you've never seen it before, it has like this really warty, it almost looks like warts on a tree, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but it's cool. So anyways, hackberry, but oak can come in because ash is like a mid-tolerant species. So you'll see those mid-tolerance kind of tailing along with and coming up and replacing ash in that spot. But again, it will be site dependent.
Thanks, Chrissy, for your knowledge. And thank you, Sarah, and everyone else who attended this session. We're so grateful for your participation. And at this time, we are a little bit over time, so we're going to end the meeting. But yeah, thanks again for attending and take care.